we could help. I think people panicked because they were so afraid. They started getting phone calls from the small business people that were having trouble making payroll, and all of a sudden the credit line had been frozen, and they were afraid that. And so I think the bailout really came about, but to try to protect not only Wall Street but the small business owner that had really panicked. But I think you're exactly right. You know, it was just shoved down Congress's throat with a lot of arm twisting. And somebody should have said, hey, everybody, let's hold on. Let's take the time and make sure we get this right. We've done things wrong too many times in a hurry.
We saw for the first time this past week the interest rate was cut globally. China has called for a one world currency, as reported by Glenn Beck. Do you think this meltdown will result in the consolidation of world financial matters under the governance of possibly a new controlling body, as the EU is calling for, a new financial order?
I certainly hope not. I don't think that's. I definitely don't think that's the direction we need to go into one world currency. I think that this is becoming a global recession or a global depression, one or the other, very rapidly by looking at the markets all over the world. But again, I don't think we need to rush into a one world currency. I think we need to avoid that at all costs. And that's the first time I've been asked that question, so that just came straight off the top of my head.
Well, one of the things that strikes me about the bailout is, it seems to be just the beginning, because General Motors is asking for help, California is asking for help, and now they're proposing possibly another stimulus check for the American people. What's your opinion on that? Or can we stimulate our way out of this?
I think the way we get our way out of this is by feeding our economy from the bottom up. Rather than stimulus packages, sending everybody a $300 or $600 check is like, taking a 10-quart bucket of water and pouring on a house that's on fire.
Yeah.
I think we've got to put people to work, and if it takes some government employment, something like the WPA of years ago, people are struggling, and people want to work, and a lot of people need to work, and we can do some many great things with putting people to work for infrastructure, putting people to work with rebuilding some things that have dilapidated. I live on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I'd love to see a government program to put people to work on the Blue Ridge Parkway. If the government has to buy 20 paving machines and a lot of dump trucks and set up an asphalt plant, let's repave the Blue Ridge Parkway one end the other and use it with American workers and American equipment. And I think that's the way we're going to have to stimulate the economy and give some tax incentives to the small business. I'm a firm believer that we will rebuild our economy on the back of the small business and the middle class with a trickle-up effect. And I don't think a simple give everybody $600. It didn't help the economy one bit last time. I don't think it's going to help this time.
We had two questions sent to us by listeners, and one of these questions was sent last week, and we asked Ms. Fox the same question. And this question comes from Mr. Anderson, and the question is, do you feel that Barack Obama is qualified to be president, having never run a city, state, business, or served in the military?
Well, I think he's an extremely intelligent man. I think he has the intellect, and I think when he picked Joe Biden, that he had made a very mature decision, and I do think he has the leadership ability to surround himself with the type person, the type of people that can kind of show up his inexperience. I think that we look too many times at people that we think can't make good presidents because of the experience. And I go back to Truman, who had very limited experience, very limited education, but was an extremely intelligent person, and had to make some of the hardest decisions our nation's ever made. And history is beginning to tell us that he was a great president.
The other question that we had come from a listener, and it is, what would you say is the major differences between yourself, Mr. Carter, and Ms. Fox?
I think it's a very philosophical difference. I believe wholeheartedly in trickle-up economics. The past administration has proven again that trickle-down economics is a failure, just like in the Great Depression. It was trickle-down economics. Feed the economy from the top by giving the wealthiest 2% tax breaks, giving big oil companies all these incentives, and forgetting about the middle class. That's trickle-down economics. I believe that you feed the economy from the bottom up. You give the middle class the tax breaks. You help the person in the middle class by lowering their taxes. You help small business by giving them incentives to help the employees have health care. And then they spend the money. They spend the money that feeds the economy. So the biggest thing, I think, is a difference in trickle-down and trickle-up economics. I believe in you feed the economy from the bottom, not the top. And, we're seeing that now. We have a failed economy, and now they want to stimulate it. They tried by sending everybody a $600 check. That didn't work. That's not going to work. We have to put people back to work. And on those same lines, Ms. Fox in the forum last week was asked a question in Mount Airy last Friday, would you be in favor of reforming the NAFTA agreements? And her answer was no. I think NAFTA has created more jobs in America than we've lost. I think that's a ludicrous statement. We have to reform NAFTA agreements. We have to turn free trade into fair trade. We have to put Americans back to work. I can ride down the road and pass, in my hometown, breaks my heart. I ride down the road and there's a Levitron with not a car in the parking lot, a nice new plant. Jobs outsourced. I don't think you can sell that to the people in the 5th District whose jobs have been outsourced, some of them, 3 times. They've been outsourced, they've taken another job, now it's gone, they've taken the 3rd job, and it's gone. So I think we must do some things, and we must do some things regionally for economic development. I think that's 2 of the greatest differences in us.
Now, Mr. Carter, in regards to the U.S. Constitution, we've seen numerous pieces of atrocious legislation which violates it, such as I mentioned earlier, the USA Patriot Act. And here at the Real News, we've been outspoken supporters of Congressman Ron Paul. He's known in the House as Dr. No for voting no against anything which even comes close to violating the Constitution. What is your perspective here, sir?
Well, I think we must always protect our Constitution, and I think we do not need to try to put add frivolous amendments to the Constitution on social issues. I think they need, we have never been successful with any social issue with a constitutional amendment to take any right away from any person. We tried that with prohibition, and it was a colossal failure. I think we need to protect our Constitution, and we don't need to mess with our Constitution and take any rights away from people. Our forefathers were pretty smart the way they put it together, and we've made a mess of things a time or two. And I think the Patriot Act was atrocious. To think that somebody may have been listening to my telephone conversations for the last 12 months.
The Federal Reserve's banking system, our forefathers despised the central banking system, and the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor a reserve. It's a conglomeration of privately owned banks, and when we print our money here in America, it's printed out of thin air, and it's debt-bearing at origin, and the American people are on the hook for it. What is your opinion of the Federal Reserve banking system? Should it be abolished, or should it be overhauled massively? And do you think we should return to some kind of sound currency that's backed by silver or gold?
Well, it'd be wonderful if we could do that, but if we abolish the Federal Reserve System right now, I think we'd have a run on the banks, and our economy would probably totally fall. So I think we have to be very judicious in the way we look at it, but we need to do things to curb